We live, baby.
We are live. We're live again. So, once again, thank you for having us again, Darian, David, myself, GT. The point of this show is just to recap, somewhat recap on what we talked about last time, and to go into a little more details with this show.
Let's build.
So pretty much what we're going to be trying to hit on is, the realm of reasoning, going back to the Enlightenment era. That's the point in time when doubts about the Bible and things like that concerning creation had started to fumigate. Also trying to tie in the conspiratorial perspectives that may have had some influence, or maybe the other way around, how the conspirators used evolution for some of their, secret agendas and things of that nature. And as I stated before, before evolution had came up, thousands of years, the Bible, the Bible, even the Old Testament was considered to be reliable history, as my brother Darian and David had pointed out, and myself, concerning Manetho's references to biblical events, and but it's all the way up to the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th centuries where we start to see the doubts in the creation model. But as evidence of this, you can take your time and go and look up the 1771 Encyclopedia Britannica on page 493, and you'll see for yourself it is listed crucial events, and it states 4007 BC was the age of creation. So yes, Thomas White, grace and peace, bro. Let me put that up there. He been rocking with us for a minute, but yeah. So again, if we look at history and we see that the Bible has always been a reliable historical source, and again, it was responsible, or it inspired archaeologists to look for answers and stuff in the Bible, and even to this day, it's still reliable. I could get into something a little different, but this is what I'll say. In Genesis 1, where is it at? Let me get my Bible. Real quick. Better yet, let me get this one. In Genesis 1, unless one of y'all can get it before I can, which I got the big Bible here because I ain't got my glasses today. So we've heard this argument before, y'all, about the end in the beginning. How do you get it in the beginning? But I'm gonna just read this. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And I'm gonna stop there. And the reason why I'm gonna stop there is because this is just another example of what I be trying to point out to some people on the other side. The Bible is not written as a science book, but there are some things that show us scientific relevance and soundness, like this statement here: in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In other words, we as Christians believe that God is the creator. If we look at the notion of the universe just starting by itself, it doesn't make sense. But we have an entity, which is God, that is outside of time, who is creating time, space, and matter, which is listed all right there in Genesis 1, 2, and 3. Time, space, and matter. In the beginning, that's time. God created the heaven. That's matter. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, again, it's time. God created the heaven, that's space, and the earth. That's matter. It's all right there. And when we look at the components of the universe as a whole is made up of time, space, and matter. I can argue for a Trinity argument there, but I'm not even going to take it there. But I just wanted to demonstrate just that one little point in regards to, you know, the inspiration of the Bible. So what I do want to get into now, and I want David to jump all over this because I know this his baby here. Can you give us some ideas about, not ideas, but some information about the Enlightenment era and the age of reasoning and the things that they thought of at that time?
Thank you, GT. Well, of course, we know, as per our topic of Monday, about the Enlightenment era, and that's called German rationalism. That's the German rationalist movement of the 18th and 19th century, which started around 1685 and ended around 1815. And we see a lot of components there that drove the movement forward. But I want to focus on some main points here that actually drove forward what is known as the theological modernism movement. And that is a disbelief in what is called because we believe, as Christians, we believe in the 5 essentials, which is the deity of Christ, the divine inspiration of the Bible, the virgin birth, salvation by grace through faith in Christ, and so forth and so on. So, they didn't believe that because it wasn't akin to science. It wasn't akin to reasoning. It wasn't reasonable to believe that God can raise a man from the dead. Jesus, we believe that the cornerstone of our faith is Christ's resurrection from the dead. This is 1 Corinthians 15. And we believe this wholeheartedly because there's evidence of this. But they don't believe it because it's not akin to science. As I quoted Monday, Friedrich Nietzsche said, who was a Freemason, and of course Darren is going to get into that later on, but he said, God is dead because we have killed him with our science. Now that's very significant to the Enlightenment period, because the Enlightenment period was man sitting himself on the throne and replacing God through the discipline of science and reasoning and rationalism and naturalism. The idea of naturalism is a belief that the universe was only created through natural law. Therefore, evolution is pretty much the same premise. We're constantly evolving through natural law. So therefore, we're not made in the image of God, but we are made through chemicals and primordial slime. This idea of man being created through a unicellular organism or one-celled organism is preposterous. It's ridiculous because, first of all, a one-celled organism is a microbe. And a microbe cannot, and I want all of you to hear me, those of you who are akin, they have a science affinity, they have a science background, I want you to hear me because this is very significant. A unicellular organism cannot go through mitosis, that's cellular division. Any organism that's alive they go through cellular cellular division because there's life there, humans and animals. But it's something significant when God says, let us make man in our image and likeness. That simply means that man is the crown of creation. So if man is the crown of creation, that means that man is given significant biological preferences over the animal kingdom and over the rest of creation. So evolution takes that away. It robs us of this idea. And so that's why it's very important to understand the difference. First of all, a cell, if it's alive, cannot evolve from a unicellular organism, because a unicellular organism can only live off of the host cell. And that's how it's able to proliferate. Think of a virus when it infects a human organism. Well, it can't live outside of the human body because it's not created through mitosis. So if that is the case, then that means that, or a parasite has to feed off of a host cell
Hmm.
and use that host cell's um, cytoplasm or Golgi apparatus to create other cells. It's called replication. It's called cellular replication. And so when the virus corrupts that, then it turns that cell into a virus making factory. Well, evolution takes it away and it says, well, we're constantly progressing, we're constantly evolving, constantly moving forward. And if since that's the case, then we there is no room for regression. But the Bible says that we are in a regressive state. We are declining.
So it's like it's practically like in reverse, like the Darwinian philosophy have us progressing forward, getting better and better with time.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, basically what the Bible is saying is that, you know, the world is corrupt and we are corrupt just in the physical state, meaning like we get diseases, we get diseases, cancer, things wear away, things erode away. Things erode away, and the process of decay is actually what's happening instead of evolving.
Right. Cells die. And this comes to my point of cellular adaptation. 2 points of that is environmental and pathological. Environmental means it's normal. You know, cells will adapt to the environment, changes in the environment. Like it's cold outside, our cells will, or our erythrocytes, which are red blood cells, will conglomerate, which means they'll make our blood thicker, and that'll insulate us from the cold. Whereas in warm weather, our blood thins out, and so that's our cells preparing us for a change in the weather or a change in the environment. Whereas in pathological processes, cells end up dying. So, you know, cancer, you know, there's a cancerous cell is a neoplasm, which is a new growth. And that cell will take over another cell and kill it off and use its growth for nutrition. And then the process continues on until the body ends up dying, or the body ends up decaying. That's abnormal. But evolution denies this, and it says, well, we're always moving forward. We're going to keep progressing until we
Evolve again,
yeah,
or change again, or something.
We end up changing into a god. Even, you know, think of the song "Age of Aquarius" by the Fifth Dimension in 1969, off the Hair album. You know, when the moon hits the seventh house and Jupiter lines with Mars, and peace will line the planet and love will fill the stars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Worldwide universal enlightenment. That's
Bless you.
evolution. They just sung evolution.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So basically what you were stating about the single cell entity based off of evolution is, you know, the primordial soup that had the amino acids and all that. You saying that process wouldn't have been possible?
No, it's impossible. Actually, science fiction. You know, we see this in realms of science fiction in comic books where that leaves off to transhumanism. I don't want to get into that, but the cell can mutate into something else. It will mutate the phenotype or the organism into something higher than what it was before. And so now you have superpowers. You can move things with the mind. You can pick up a car. You can jump from Ogontz Avenue all the way to Upsall Street in a single bound. That's, you know, I'm creative, but that this is what they're teaching. And so Blavatsky and all of these individuals, they said that we are moving forward. So since we're moving forward, we have to get rid of genetic undesirables. Hitler's Third Reich was based off of that. In order for our Third Reich to move forward, which is basically the satanic elite running the world, we have to destroy or we have to kill off certain undesirables. Bill Gates, let's put it off in the modern times. Bill Gates has said the same thing. Oprah Winfrey has said the same thing. We have to eliminate certain undesirables to initiate this satanic elite. Nicholas Schreck, who's a member of the Church of Satan, he said the same thing. We have to kill off certain people in order to initiate this satanic elite.
Okay. So check it out. We brought up what Darwin had provided us with a lot of resources. One person in particular, Erasmus Darwin.
Yeah, for sure.
You had said something, David had said something earlier, and we've heard this in the back chat a lot, where, again, religion and science don't mix. Anybody who disagrees with evolution seems to be ignorant. So I'm gonna pull this up real quick. Now, I found a quote by Erasmus Darwin. Darian, if you don't mind, could you explain who just a little bit more of who Erasmus Darwin was while I pull this?
So Erasmus Darwin was the Freemason who pioneered evolutionary ideas, and then he wrote something called the Zoonomia. That was in 1794. Ironically, this same guy is Charles Darwin's grandfather, and there's another guy who is Charles Darwin's cousin. So he has two popular grandsons, and I'll get into him later. His cousin is Francis Galton, so he's also the grandson of Erasmus Darwin. So if you know anything about Charles Darwin, you know what he wrote was The Origin of Species of Natural Selection, right? Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting because you're pulling up a quote from this book, so I'll let you read the quote, and then I just wanted to say go ahead, read the quote.
Okay, now this quote basically is just trying to get into the mindset of this person, Erasmus Darwin, in regards to religion. And it's just to show, hey, the people that was holding on to these ideas about evolution, the pioneers of evolution, let's look at what they thought about, religious matters. It's a little hard to read because it's in like old English in some parts, but let me go. All right. Hold up. All right. In regards to religious matters, there is an intellectual cowardice instilled into the minds of the people from their infancy, which prevents their inquiry. Credulity is made an indispensable virtue. So off the top already, he's saying that pretty much in layman terms, we're taught to believe in God from the time that we're born, and that is causing us not to see the true picture when it comes to inquire into science. Let me continue. To inquire or exert their reason in religious matters is denounced as sinful. And in the Catholic Church, and again, to my bros, we're not the ones labeling everybody that is Catholic under the Roman Catholic Church. In all due respect, if you are Catholic and but you don't subscribe to the Roman Catholic Church or any of their nefarious activities, then this is not pointed at you. And that's if we say anything about the Roman Catholic Church. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there first. But he says here that, in religious matters is denounced as sinful, and the Catholic Church is punishable with more severe penances than moral crimes. I would say here he may have somewhat of a point, because who was the astrologer that the Roman Catholic Church actually killed? Galileo.
Galileo, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Galileo. Yeah, he had a different idea about the cosmos, which was unscriptural in a sense in regards to the helio and geocentric models. But I don't think that was a reason to kill him. You see what I'm saying? And this is the stuff that the people in the back chat that we talk to, this is the stuff that they always bring up. But again, Bible doesn't tell us to kill anybody if they have a difference of opinion when it comes to the word. All we're supposed to do, as Jude says, is contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. Contend for the faith, not kill for the faith. Let me continue. But in respect to our belief of the supposed medical facts, which are published by a variety of authors, many of whom are ignorant and therefore credulous, the golden rule of David Hume may be applied with great advantage. And I'm just going to stop there. The only reason I wanted to point that out was because, again, just the mindset of what was developing at that time, and in the minds of the pioneers of the evolutionary theory, Darwinian evolution. So go ahead, Darren. You had something that you was going to touch on.
So basically, as you read something out of the Zoonomia, this was his I guess the inception or the creation of what later becomes going from Erasmus into Charles Darwin's way of thinking. And so obviously, as a Freemason, he laid the groundwork for evolutionary theory before his grandson. And I wanted to just point out that when you look at the proposed ideas about how species change over time, setting the stage, you look at the way that Charles Darwin pieced those things together. The origin of species of natural selection, meaning that the bigger, the stronger, defeats and these are my words, defeats the weaklings. So they want to phase out. They believe that if you are stronger and more powerful, you can phase out the weaklings. And so when you think like that, I begin to concern myself with things like morality. Like, are these views moral? Because if I can find somebody that I just deem is beneath me, and I just believe that he should be eradicated or she should be eradicated. You can't just throw people in the trash because you believe that they're more inferior to you based on this type of thinking. Does that make sense? And
yeah.
So I did some research just to make sure, for those who will fact check me, yes, Erasmus Darwin was definitely a Mason. He was initiated in 1754 at St. David's Lodge, number 36 in Edinburgh. So when we look at him, we see that we go from that into the work, The Laws of Organic Life, in 1794 and 1796. And then Charles Darwin expanded on his grandfather's ideas during his voyage on the HMS Beagle. So then his theory of natural selection was based on the observations made on this particular journey. And so I just wanted to point out those things and just give you just a robust understanding of the way that these men think. Back to you, GT.
Okay. And I'm glad you brought that point out, because like that whole concept, I think what they call it, survival of the fittest.
That's what I wanted you to say, survival of the fittest.
Yes.
And that whole mentality, Dave, please break that down. That whole mentality on survival of the fittest, and just in terms of what that means for morality and how you think in this particular era of time, how crucial that is.
Well, survival of the fittest is basically the definition of natural selection.
Correct.
And what Darwin was getting at was natural selection for favored races. People don't read the entire title, they just read
That's
origin of
it.
species. And so favored races is the epitome of racism. So that means that if I kill you because you're inferior to me, whether it's for racial reasons or genetic reasons, then I'm justified in doing this because I don't see you as a person. I don't see you as an individual that was made in the image of God. I see you as just an animal that I'm trying to kill so I can eat, or
For
I can
sure.
or kill because I want to subjugate. And that's gave rise to all of think of all these totalitarian leaders like Mao Zedong, Hitler, Stalin, Vladimir Lenin, the Khmer Rouge in Indonesia. All of these individuals, Robert Mugabe out there in Zimbabwe, they all believed that the people that they were subjugating were inferior genetically. They were inferior racially and they were inferior genetically. And so they have to be eliminated so that we can progress forward as a favored race. Hitler went to send his men, the Gestapo, the secret police in German, to Atlantis, to Heinrich Himmler and his men to Atlantis to find the first Aryan man, to excavate the first Aryan man. Who was the Aryan man? Well, he was the first Superman. And so that
The Ubermensch?
Say again?
Wasn't it called the Ubermensch?
I think so.
While you talking, I'm just going to verify my claim because I don't want to say something that's wrong. But you were saying the first Superman.
Yeah, the first Superman race. And so that became the epitome of his Third Reich. The idea of, Hitler killing off people that didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes, which he didn't either. He had brown hair and brown eyes.
And the funny thing about it is that he didn't kill himself, and they tried to kill him, I think, twice, and they still didn't succeed.
Well, eventually he killed himself in a bunker with his girlfriend when his Third Reich or his tyranny ended in 1945 at the end of World War II. But
but he didn't kill himself because he didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes.
Well, yeah, that's the point that you were trying to make. I understand,
yeah.
But
that was Nietzsche. That was Nietzsche's. The Ubermensch was from Nietzsche. Just to give you the term, you'll probably remember. The Ubermensch is someone who has crossed over the bridge from the comfortable house on the lake, so to speak, the comfortable, easy, mindless acceptance of what a person has been taught and what everyone else believes, the mountains of unrest and solitude. That's the quote. And so that was from his poem, from the character Zarathustra, and the goal of humanity as a goal for humanity to set for itself. The Ubermensch represents a shift from otherworldly Christian values and manifests the grounded human ideal.
Well, yeah, so, Hitler followed. I'm sorry, Nietzsche followed Hitler.
Right. That's what made me say it, because I remember that terminology. But I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But Nietzsche followed his Hitler's his theology, his beliefs to a T, and he ended up going with the whole idea of a racial or some type of Superman race, that's highly intelligent and that's going to take over the world. And that started the whole satanic elite. Aleister Crowley even said something similar to that. He said that he was trying to establish a one world government or a new age where the satanic elite would run the world, and all of the Christians or all of the so-called individuals that were undesirables had to be killed off. They had to be offed.
And you know what? So what Darian stated about survival of the fittest, and then you going into much more details about how some of these communist leaders and socialist agendas have propagated this particular type of behavior by killing off undesirables. When you think about nature, and I don't know why I keep thinking about the lions, like if you've ever paid attention to the animal kingdom, where you will see, an old lion who's been, in the tribe for a few years. He's old, he's decrepit, and then you got two younger lions come in, and they're stronger than he is. And what they do is they come in, they kill him, they get rid of him. But look at what else they do. These lions, they go to the lion's tribe and
His pride.
His pride.
Yeah, pride. My bad. To the lion's pride, and they find the cubs of the former lion's progeny, and they kill them.
Mm-hmm.
They kill the kids. They kill the cubs. After that, then the women, or not the women, but the female lions, they go right back into heat. But this is what the animal kingdom does. This is the natural world. Now, while y'all was talking about that, a scripture came up in my head, 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 12, in regards to the people who have this philosophy in their heads. So this is what it says here in 2 Peter 2:12. Verse 12. But these are natural brute beasts made to be taken and destroyed, speak evil of the things that they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption. You see, because we have a judge who will judge the world according to everything that is done in the flesh. And if these people used evolution as a means to justify their genocide and the experiments they've done on other human beings, then guess what? They will find themselves in the hot seat when they get to the other side. And I'm pretty sure most of them have already. There's a clear difference in thinking when you have a biblical narrative versus a naturalistic evolutionary concept. On one hand, you're an insect, you're nothing to me, I can kill you without having any remorse about what I do, versus God saying, love your enemy as you love yourself. It's a completely different concept. So now I understand a little bit more now as to why these people think in the way that they do.
Well, my favorite verse with regards to this topic is Colossians 2:8 and First Timothy 3 and 5.
Do I need to pull up Colossians
2:8? Yeah.
2? Okay.
2 and 8.
2 and 8. Let me read it real quick. Beware. That came to my mind too. Colossians 2:8. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the traditions of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. Amen, bro.
Yeah, the rudiments there is the elementary principles, and that these individuals will use. And then I think it's First Timothy 3 and 5 talks about science falsely so-called, if I'm not mistaken. The idea of, and of course, evolution is false science. It's not.
You said First Timothy what?
3 and 5, I believe.
3 and 5. Okay, I'm getting that. 3 and 5.
But that idea of falsely a science so-called, or science falsely so-called, that's evolution.
No, it's not 3 and 5, but you find it falsely, science falsely called. I'll find it.
It's and while y'all doing that, you found it?
Y'all, First Timothy 6. Are you ready?
Okay.
Yeah, 6.
All right. And this is what it says here. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called, which some professing have erred concerning the faith. Grace be with thee. Amen.
So
I'm glad y'all mentioned that, because as I was going through our show notes, I found a few quotes that just deliver that information. So remember I was talking about Erasmus Darwin. He had another grandson, and it was Galton, Francis Galton.
Yeah, Galton.
It's fitting because when you listen to the type of stuff that they really talk about, even so, just a quick, Francis Galton was born 1822, and he made it all the way to January 17, 1911. He was a eugenicist and a polymath, and he was the originator of the behavioral genetics movement. So during the Victorian era, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Darwin's cousin, Francis Galton, founded the eugenics movement after reading on the origin of species. Pause right there. Literally, the very information that most of science is propped up upon is Charles Darwin's work. We found his grandfather, he had an issue with believers in religion and called them cowards. They had a coward built inside of them. Now we have his cousin who was standing on the shoulders of Charles Darwin, and he's going into, he invented the word eugenics, meaning good breeding, and defined it as the study of all agencies under social control, which can improve or impair the racial quality of future generations. Galton believed that even moral and mental traits are the product of inheritance and called for better breeding, as with horses and cattle, to ensure that the nobler varieties of mankind prevail over the feebler. And that's Desmond Darwin, page 557. So it's interesting to me that not only Francis Galton, but then the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche have purported these weird ideals. So it's funny because he probably best known for God is dead pronouncement, and the fact that he believed in evolution, but he vehemently rejected some of the major principles of Darwinism. So he had his own views of the same material. And it was like, he had a book called Death of God, and he proclaimed that the death of God, matter of fact, I'm sorry, the name of the book where he proclaimed the death of God was In the Gay Science. It was a parable about a madman with a lantern looking for God, only to have his fellow citizens ridicule it. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his eyes. Whither is God, he cried. I tell you, we have killed him, and all of us are his murderers. God is dead, and we have killed them. Nietzsche then explained that what he meant was the belief, specifically the belief in the Christian God, has become unbelievable. His motive appears to have been to counteract the concept of future judgment by announcing the death of the judge. He wrote, "We deny God, and we denying God, we deny accountability." In place of God, Nietzsche put forward his superhuman, there you go, the German Übermensch, which I was saying earlier, an imagery of super strong, amoral individual who will overcome all opposition, as well as the need for God, because Nietzsche's view of God was an illusion of the mind. So I want to point this out. A lot of atheists and a lot of people that's within the a lot of people, you don't know what you're talking about. Go research. Go do the real research instead of making claims. I'm talking to Teddy. Like, this is the second time you've been on the show and you just say random things. You gotta chill. Like, I really question your reasoning, simply because these are the same. I'm glad he put himself out there. Y'all make yourselves known. This is the same. So okay, let's do this. Let's say they not cousins. Let's say they're not cousins, right, Dave?
Yeah,
Did
they
they?
keep doing it.
If he made the claims, he made the claims. It's not you're arguing stuff that doesn't even matter. So let's say, for instance, they wasn't related. They was born in the same time, around the same time. They had the same contemporaries, and he still wrote the books. Did he not?
He wrote.
Did he not say the stuff? I'm quoting his material directly out of page and source. If you need me to put citations in the group, I can do that. So are you saying Nietzsche didn't exist, or are you saying Galton did not exist? Sir Francis Galton definitely existed. We got tons of material on them.
Yeah. No, he's saying it looks like he's saying that his cousin was pseudo. In other words, he had pseudo
All right, then, if that's what you're saying, I apologize, but I'm used to you saying stuff where you disagreeing with where we coming from. But whether I'm pseudo or not is besides the point. I didn't write it. I'm just simply saying where the dude coming from. And so I get fired up on this part right here. Let me tell you why I get emotional about this type of stuff. Simply because these are the very people that killed all of our ancestors. These are the very people who said we was gorillas and monkeys. And these are the people who have, over the years, they have created this they're better than us mentality and have us where we are underlings to them. And so it bothers me when people use their doctrines to assist and prop up things just because they don't want to believe in God. Like they literally chose Christianity from the rip. But they'll say, oh, the church did this. The church did this. Like, cool. I'm not saying the church perfect. I don't even think that there is a doctrine that will say that we are perfect in this flesh. But what I'm trying to say is, if we going to discuss Christianity is having issues within our ranks, let's discuss the fact that there are scientists who have issues within their ranks. Not just one or two, just like you can name some things that the Roman Catholic Church have done. You could talk about some of the Puritans, they had slaves. But what you have to understand is a lot of those pieces of thinking came directly out of Freemasonry, the evolutionary theory, and the occult. And that's what we're trying to show you. Those things merge together. These are the same people and the same contemporaries who are building this line of thinking and this line of philosophical ideal. I want you to understand, if you take anything from what Darwin's saying, what I am simply saying is, from the beginning of its inception, these theories have always purported racial issues. From the rip, so much they were so racist that they had to find a way to make us look like animals, to breed us like we was pit bulls and German shepherds.
Yep.
I'll stop there and give somebody else the floor.
So it's good. It's a good point, and I think we about to get into that. From what I'm looking at, so Darian, and I see Julius is in the chat. What's up, bro?
What's up, Julius? What's up, bro?
Still waiting on your call, bro. Hit me up. Hit your brother up. I'm right here, bro. I'm right here. Anyways, Julian Huxley. You familiar with that person, David?
I am.
All right. I got a quote here. This is from Plain Truth, written between June and July 1974.
Socialist, right? He was a socialist, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. This is what they say. The supernatural is being swept away out of the universe. God can no longer be considered as the controller of the universe. Operationally, God is beginning to resemble not a ruler, but the last fading smile of a cosmic Cheshire cat. And this is Evolution, God's Method of Creating, Plain Truth, July 1974, page 19.
Yeah. See, we are, this goes further into my point. If you notice, they're not arguing about no other religions, really. And you'll see later that they adopt other beliefs into their Hinduism, all of this type of stuff, but they never want to deal with Christianity as being something that's valuable. It's always we are under attack. And it ain't because, and if you notice, it's not because of atrocities. It's not because of atrocities. It's because of the moral implications that come along with our belief system. They, in their own writings, have already said that they want to do away with God to have amoral people. And I submit to you today that some of these things are the reason why in school they could tell your son or daughter to switch gender roles and assign a man to be a woman and a woman to be a man. And then when we ask, what about the science behind it, they just readily sweep it under the rug simply because they truly never cared about these teachings. These teachings, in my opinion, from what I can see, and you'll begin to see if there has been a conspiracy to put us under a system like the Matrix. And when you put us in the Matrix system, you can superimpose thoughts and beliefs in the people over time. And so it looks like over the last since the Enlightenment period, they have had a meeting somewhere and said, we are going to influence the way people think and get them to move away from Christian ideals, because that's affecting the way we operate. We need to get them to become amoral so that we can increase in and they have a whole checklist of things that they want to do to us as people so that they can position themselves.
Go ahead, David. You had something to say?
What you just said is the epitome of cultural Marxism. They want to inject their ideas into the culture. And what a masterful way to do that is through the education system and to affect children. Their target was children all along. Remember Hitler and his Hitler Youth. You know, his Hitler Youth was Hitler's target, because if you get them while they're young, then you can influence their thinking later on in life. And so that's what the cultural Marxists said. The cultural Marxists said, okay, well, if we can't kill them, we can't stamp them out, then we'll influence them somehow with our doctrines. Get rid of God, because that's why Madeline O'Hare went to the Supreme Court in 1962 and rallied and argued that, okay, we need to get prayer out of the school system because this is violating separation of church and state, which I won't get into that right now, but because they wanted to introduce their beliefs. And so now God is out of the school system. So evolution is in. Evolution theory, Satanism, the occult, Hindu practices. I can go to work. I can go to my classroom and talk about Hindu practices and evolution, but I can't talk to you about the biblical creational ideal.
Right. Do you remember when Obama was in office, they was allowing the Quran to be read?
Yeah.
In the schools, and still was censoring the scriptures. Like, people went to court over that stuff. Why is there such a bias?
Right. And it's like we don't peep this. Listen to this. And hopefully this will make sense as I say it, right?
Okay.
So it's like, all right, the Mason magazine that was printed in Turkey, but it says, and it explains the support of evolution theory as follows. Darwin's evolution, and this is what they say. Darwin's evolution theory showed that many events in the nature are not the work of God. Freemason, and this is just the overview. Freemasons try to impose Darwin. This is me saying it first. Darwinism as a scientific theory. Darwinism is used as a tool to pave the way for the atheist Masonic powers to spread the deviant belief system. Therefore, Masons adopt the propagation of this theory as one of their primary duties, right? So this is their magazine refers to Masonic duty as below. The greatest humane Masonic duty we all own is to hold on to the positive science, to spread this belief among people and educate them with positive science. And obviously I'm talking about Darwinism. By adopting the view that this is the best and only way in evolution, an important example which proves the fact that Darwinism is one of the biggest deceptions is what I want you to understand, is the resolution carried out in the Mason meeting. I'm gonna give you some of the minutes in a second. The 33rd degree Supreme Council of Mizraim, there go that word, Freemasonry at Paris reveals it in minutes, its promotion of evolution as science, while they themselves scoffed at the theory. Now, this is their minutes. And quote, it is the object in view or the scientific theory of evolution that we are constantly by means of our press arousing a blind confidence in these theories. The intellectuals will puff themselves up with their knowledge and without any logical verification. Without any logical verification of them, will put into the effect all the information available from science, which our agentor specialists have cunningly pieced together for the purpose of educating their minds in the direction we want. Do not suppose for a moment that these statements are empty words. Think carefully of the success we arrange for Darwinism, end quote. So Masons openly admit that they will use the scientists and media, which are under their control, to present the deception as scientific, which even they find funny. When Freemasons talk about the success they arrange for Darwinism, they actually refer to it infiltrating a deception into universities, school textbooks, and most of the mass media as scientific truth, squelching the ones who have anti-Darwinist views and hindering anti-Darwinist activities by oppression. So
following the lead of Erasmus Darwin.
Correct. Because
go ahead.
I'll just give you this was the quote that I was running with earlier. Francis Galton, we greatly want a brief word to express the science of improving stock, which is by no means confined to questions of judicious mating. I think I already did I hit this already? But which is especially in the case of man, takes cognizance of all influences that tend, in however remote a degree, to give to the more suitable races of strains of blood better chance prevailing speedily over the less suitable than they otherwise would have had. The word eugenics would sufficiently express the idea. End quote from Francis Galton. So what I'm saying is they literally have desired to encapsulate us as a people, treat us like cattle, and teach us, even in the school systems, even at the university level, of this foolishness. And to me, that's alarming. That's alarming because we are people of color, and we've already seen through some of these other guys within this particular field that they don't even see us as humans. They see us as cattle. But and so it's just dangerous. It's just dangerous because when you go from that teaching and get into eugenics, and then you wonder why there's a lot of mixed races of people that don't get treated with a certain level of dignity. Here's why.
Yeah. So now you brought up about the education system and how there was a conspiracy to get this into the textbooks in order to convince the rest of humanity to believe in these unprovable, unlogical theories. And what made me think about what something popped up in my brain when you brought that up, and this is to David. Doesn't this fall under the planks? What is it? 12 planks of Marxism?
I was just about to throw a Karl Marx quote at you, bro.
And we ain't share those notes right there.
No, we didn't. We didn't. This man said, keep people from their history and they are easily controlled. Then that's a Karl Marx quote. He also said, my object in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism.
Yeah, I was going to quote that.
He beat you to it.
Yeah,
he beat you to
a 33rd degree Mason. That's him.
That's crazy because
I got one more quote. This is another one. We must war against all prevailing ideas of religion, of the state, of country, of patriotism. The idea of God is the keynote of a perverted civilization. It must be destroyed. Karl Marx.
Yeah,
Hey,
look at what Sololinsky wrote in his book called Rules for Radicals. He was talking about the rebel. You know, this is according to the rebel, the first rebel to go against go against it all, Lucifer. Lucifer. And by the way, Saul Alinsky was a socialist, and he was Barack Obama's mentor, and he was Hillary Clinton's mentor.
explains it all. It is starting to go ahead.
But it's fascinating how people and I look at when we talk about evolution and evolutionary theory, why was it so important to get it into the school system, get it into the educational system at the university level? Well, because these young minds were going to be teachers one day. They're going to teach our children. They're going to teach our grandchildren. They're going to teach our relatives or whoever. They're going to teach the next generation of individuals to believe in socialism.
Hey, you see our brother Jacobus up there. He said they're claiming black power but pushing white supremacy.
Exactly. The idea of black nationalism, in my opinion, the idea of black nationalism comes from the idea of white supremacy. All they did was blackwash it. It's the same teachings.
Right. Now, I believe, and I know y'all know this too, there's a underlying problem, and it's a spiritual problem. And we keep saying we wonder why this is happening, but this is what the scriptures teach us. This is what it says. This is what we look out for as Christians. This is 1 John chapter 4, verse. I'll start from verse 1. Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. Hereby know ye that the Spirit of God, know ye the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confess that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God. Hold up. But every spirit that confesses not Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And this is that spirit of Antichrist. Wherefore, whereof, yea, have ye heard that it should come, and even now is already in the world.
Yep.
This is why they are under the spirit of Antichrist, because if you can look at this theory and see so many holes in it, but yet contrive an agenda to overturn the biblical narrative, put it in schools, and use it as a racial superiority ideology. That's a word salad there, but then you have to be under the spirit of Antichrist, because at the end of the day, if there's no supernatural entity, there is no God. If there's no God, there's no Jesus Christ. If there's no Jesus Christ, then guess what? Or for them, there is a Jesus Christ. He's just not divine. He's not really important. So therefore, hey, with all that said, he may be a historical person, but guess what? To them, he's not important. So now,
some kind of avatar.
Yeah. So now there is no salvation for mankind under this ideology that teaches that they teach us that we're evolving into something better, when it's actually the complete opposite. We're actually
all why they rewrite history.
Right.
Well,
that's crazy.
Romans chapter 8 tells us,
God need to pull it. God need to pull it.
It refutes that very ideology that everything is progressing forward.
What verse?
I think it's 32.
Verse 32. Yeah, we getting into the Bible with y'all now. So we want to let y'all see how we reason with this foolishness that y'all be putting out there. We read the Bible, and the Bible is very clear as to how we should deal with this type of stuff. And we doing it right here in your presence. So verse 32, he spared not his own son, but delivered up. Is that it right there?
Wait, hold on a second. I think it talks about the earth groaning.
Oh, oh yeah. I think that might be Romans 1.
No, I
No.
thought that was the.
It is Romans 28, 8:26.
Yeah,
I hear it is.
Yeah.
I read it to you. Likewise, the Spirit also helps our infirmities, for we know what we should pray for as we ought. But the Spirit itself makes intercession for us with groaning which cannot be uttered. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the groaning of the earth. That wasn't.
Yeah, that wasn't. Yeah.
Let me find it right, because I think it's what it's talking about is the manifestation of the sons of God. I'll get into that.
Yeah.
Manifestation, sons of God, is Romans 8:19. Here it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, 8:19 through 22.
19 through 22. Here it is. All right. I hope y'all got y'all Bibles and y'all highlighters ready. For the earnest expectation of the creature waits for the manifestations. Wait for the manifestation of the sons of God. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who has subjected the same in hope. Because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God.
So that's proof there that evolution is a lie.
Right. In other words, the creation, the earthquakes that happen, how the simplest things, the fact that we die, the fact that we get sick, the fact that moth and rust is prevalent, the fact that we get old and wrinkled and all these other things, the earth too. I'm sounding like Darian, talking about the earth too.
There you go.
but yeah, it's like situations that's happen, like climate. I'm sorry, the weather. Infectious diseases, not just that, the pollution that's happening in our skies, in our land, in our oceans. The earth is definitely is waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God, which is when Jesus Christ returns and set everything back in order.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the earth is waiting for, and the creature as well, because we learn that during the millennial kingdom of Jesus Christ, for those who believe in the millennial kingdom in a literal sense, there will be peace between the lion and the ox, the serpent and the child. So something will change eventually, but right now we are in a state of decay, and that's the point. That's the main point. I yield back.
Which is the complete opposite. If Jesus is setting order, the men in the quote unquote global elite who think that they better than everybody else, they trying to set order out of chaos. They trying to turn it. They trying to turn it into chaos. They teaching false narratives. They recreating history. They got people remembering things that didn't exist. You know what I mean? What's that? The Mandela effect. Like they literally plan in our face, and they've been doing it since the beginning. They used to say that black people didn't read, so it didn't really matter what we thought because we didn't know the information. And here we are going through the exact books that they wrote, and then reading that ideology and see that over the last, since the 1700s, 1600s, even the 1500s, they had already had this conspiracy in play. Mm-hmm. It's too many people who all have the same allegiance. If they all plan on the same team and they in multiple walks of life, all the way into the media, all the way into sciences, all the way into the universities, all the way into the different, I guess, platforms.
Echelons.
Yeah, they all over everything, and it's all the same group of people with the same. Even they even got people who flying rockets. What was his name? Jack Parsons. They got
Yeah,
rock. The guy before he was Elon Musk before Elon Musk was out. You know what I mean? So it's like when you really thinking, I'm gonna name another person, Alice Bailey. You know what I'm saying? They all saying the same thing. Margaret Mary. She was an Egyptologist for all those.
What's her name again?
Margaret Mary.
From 1863 to 1963. She died in the 1960s, bruh. Her
Yeah,
contribution was she was an Egyptologist and a folklorist. She proposed controversial theories about witchcraft and the witch trials. So her discipline was Egyptology and folklore studies. This is her ideology. Mary's theories about witchcraft and the witch trials were not explicitly tied to like the racial ideas per se or eugenics. However, her interpretations of historical evidence and folk traditions contributed to the development of modern Wicca and neo-paganism, which emphasized nature worship and spiritual equality among practitioners. So her negative influence would be that she was criticized by some historians and scholars, probably from the Christian community, for her lack of empirical evidence and their reliance on speculative interpretations. Her work has been described as sensationalist and unscientific, contributing to misconceptions about witchcraft and the historical persecution of alleged witches. So her whole premise was to get into Egyptology and studies of folklore and then develop her own version of, let's say, for instance, obviously Africans have practiced shamanism for years and their own version of folklore belief systems. She basically took those and then repurposed them and made them popular again.
Well, and then you got ancestry worship and voodoo. In some places, you like Haiti and some places in the South, you call that a voodoo. But in other deep South states,
Voodoo, Santeria, Candomblé.
Santeria is in the Caribbean, like Puerto Rico and
Cuba.
So what do we get? What are we getting at here with these affiliations with these? I guess you would call them man-made traditions. I think that's what we can call them. The expansion.
Oh yeah.
The expansion of man-made ideologies that have evolution as their foundation.
Well, they would have to, yeah.
So for the most part, keep in mind, the reason I mentioned her is because, as they had said, they didn't want you to be a Christian, right?
Right.
In order for you to not be a Christian, they have to propose other belief systems that work within their framework. So somebody like Margaret Mary can go and be a British Egyptologist and then have the credentials to take paganism from old times and repopularize it in the early 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, and get it back popular. And so, David, you can pretty much speak to that, because if it wasn't for her and Alice Bailey and Helena Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley, a lot of even the music industry wouldn't even be affected the way it is. Yeah. And they have been effective with these vehicles to also move us away from Christian teachings because it's a part of their agenda.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, David, and I'm gonna go after you. I want what I want to go into a little bit more of just some concepts about Masons and why we feel like, you know what I'm saying, their involvement with all this stuff is very concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, go ahead, David. Go ahead.
But yeah, I was gonna tag along with what Darren was talking about. It's kind of interesting how Margaret Mary came up with was a British Egyptologist, because who claims to be one? Oh yeah, Africa Bombada claims to be an Egyptologist. He went to Egypt and actually learned all of these principles, brought it back to New York City, and him and DJ Kool Herc ended up teaching it to all the other black men that lived in the area through music. about all of these principles, the black man being God, the black man, same principles that Crowley and Blavatsky and Alice Bailey and Albert Pike said, you know, man is God. You know, the Humanist Manifesto talks about man being God. And
They just switched the color.
yeah, they just switched the color. You know, they put it in blackface. It's not enlightenment in the black conscious movement, is being woke or being conscious
and indoctrinated with propaganda that came from white people who have desired to ruin us from the rip. But continue, Dave.
Yeah, you know, so you look at all of these individuals that put all of these things in place, and I find it kind of funny that they turn around and say that they stole it from us, that we were the ones that
that we stole it from them.
From them. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
we were the first ones to go into Egypt and gather all this information, and then the white man somehow during slavery took all of these principles, stole it from us, and used it for their own, purposes. But it was the opposite, and we showed you how it was the opposite.
Yeah, and you know the crazy part about that statement where they say, "Oh, they went to Egypt and stole our knowledge and came back and made it for their own." That is not true. There may be some instances where they did borrow some things from Egypt, like you can read in Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. He says something that is archaeologically not impossible, but inaccurate, where he says that the Great Pyramid wasn't built to be a tomb, but it was built as a secret chamber for ritualistic Masonic rites.
That's what Aleister Crowley said. Aleister Crowley used these. As a matter of fact, him and his wife went to Egypt, and because he was kicked out of Italy, you know, they even said that he was the most evil man that ever lived. And they kicked him out of Egypt, Italy, because he was doing these practices. He was actually involved in sex magic and molesting children and all of that other stuff. And so he was booted out, and he went to Egypt, and he talked with a familiar spirit called Iwas. And that's when he wrote the Book of the Law. And in the Book of the Law, he said the exact same thing that Blavatsky said, Alice Bailey said, that they want to establish a one world government where the elite, the satanic elite, is here, and we're all the way down here. We're subjugated.
Pecking order.
Yeah, wait a minute. Are you saying that African, but not only did all of these European dudes show up somewhere, are you saying that African Bambaataa literally went to Egypt and studied under some white person, most likely, or followed all of the same tenets of those teachings, and then went back to New York and did the same exact thing?
That's exactly what.
And then here's what's funny. Didn't African Bambaataa get caught in a scandal about touching children? The same way.
Same thing that Brother Polite.
Why is that always affiliated with that? You know what I'm saying? Like
with Brother Polite, same thing. Brother Polite
and these European people was doing that first.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
What was this team? What was the name of Nuwapianism?
And Nuwapianism came from Egypt. And Crowley ended up studying that as well.
Yeah, like
we're gonna need citations because they're not gonna believe that, bro. They're not gonna believe it. Yo, they not gonna believe it. We giving you, Nuwapianism is basically Crowleyite, a Crowley-born framework.
Yeah, it's Crowleyism.
Wow.
Yeah. It's Crowleyism.
That's crazy.
Hold on. So this.
They gonna be hurt.
So what they say about the Christian religion, about we follow a white man's religion, in reality, they're the ones that's following a white man's religion.
Pseudo
science
and pseudo religion.
GT, remember what I told you?
Son.
GT, remember what I told you about 4 years ago? I said all of this.
It's crazy.
4 years ago, that these people believe in a perennial mysticism, perennial philosophy. They all believe that everything comes from the same source. So Aldous Huxley wrote the perennial philosophy and published it in 45. And of course, he got all of this from his brother. Then he got it from Alice Bailey. He got it from Helena Blavatsky. Hitler ended up reading his book, her book, The Secret Doctrine. Crowley ended up writing the Book of the Law. He went to Egypt. Why did African Bambaataa go to Egypt and find out all of these things, bring it back to New York City and teach it to the other black men that were in there? And that's why it's all in their music.
Wow.
You know, you got a woman by the name of
He teaches. Does he teach? And he teaches a new race too. African Bambaataa.
Well, he taught. Well, the NOIs in African Bambaataa, they teach that the idea that black man is the new race.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's literally Alice Bailey verbatim.
Okay, I got this quote. Then. This is from W.L. Wilmshurst. The Meaning of Masonry, New York, published by Bell Publishing Company, 1980, page 94. Listen to what he says here. This, talking about evolution, the evolution of man into Superman, there's that word again, Superman, was always the purpose of ancient mysteries. I'll get into that in a sec. Man who has sprung from the earth and developed through the lower kingdoms of nature to his present rational state has yet to complete his evolution by becoming a godlike being and unifying his consciousness with the omnipotent. And that's W.L. W.L. Wilmshurst in his book, The Meaning of Masonry. So all these people that we're talking about and identifying have some affiliation with a secret society, mainly the Freemasons or Masons, it seems, and are very responsible for putting out this, what we can rightfully call pseudo-scientific information for the purpose of deceiving the masses.
That's crazy. I'm still caught up because it's like literally full circle. This whole religion's based off of some of these people's teachings, right? But then it's in the black community where they jazz it up a little bit, but it's exactly. Humans still trying to achieve godhood without God. That's crazy.
I'm gonna read this since we need quotes because I don't want to talk out of the side of my head. Now this is from Aleister Crowley in Ancient Egypt. Quote: "It's not an unusual sight. A fashionably dressed European couple walk through a museum." Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to read all that. Aleister Crowley and his wife Rose made this visit to Egypt on their honeymoon in spring of 1904, a period where Britain ruled Egypt through, quote, a veiled proctorate, which began with a brutal naval bombardment on Alexandria that killed many civilians in 1888. This trip to Egypt was one of many Crowley had undertaken. The country was in midway point to the important imperial route between Britain and India via the Mediterranean and Suez Canal. The couple had planned to sail on to China. Indeed, they had stopped on Cairo outward journey in November of the previous year when they visited the pyramids of Giza. Hoping to impress his new beautiful wife, Crowley arranged a night time to visit the central chamber of the Grand Pyramid, where he read out a magical incantation. According to his own report, a strange light filled the chamber. In India, Crowley enjoyed big game hunting just as... Okay, let me read. This was only by chance. The Crowleys found themselves back in Egypt that spring night. The marriage had been an impetuous one. Crowley met Rose through her brother, Gerald. This has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. The first time Crowley made the same journey the year before, he wasn't particularly interested in antiquities, enjoying instead the city's more worldly pleasures. This time with Rose, he wanted to introduce her to the sights, show off his connections with the imperial administrators, and prove his magical prowess. He was also taught Arabic language and mysticism, named by the unnamed sheik.
Oh, sheik, yeah.
So, yeah, they're talking about his life now.
So he
So-
pretty much he
So
pretty much
that's
was
just
a
the documentation of going there. Like he went to Egypt, he played around with him and his brand new wife, and then he got into his magic rituals.
Yeah,
yeah. And see what I was saying earlier about
That's easy to find on the internet. Like I know that.
right.
so what I was saying about their concept about Egypt, they took a lot of mysticism and mixed it with Egyptian historical documents. I want to say documents, but I would say ideology.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but here's where it gets interesting. The entity that Rose claimed channeled was Aiwass. Aiwass commanded the couple to turn to their flat in Cairo into a temple. Crowley was to enter the temple at noon on 3 days, 8 to 8:10 April of 1904, and write down what he had heard. Rose was no longer needed as a medium, so now he used the familiar spirit Aiwass as a medium to write the Book of the Law. Arguably, Crowley's description resembles Shelley's description of Ozymandias, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command remained half sunk in the sand. Aiwass wore Assyrian or Persian clothing. In 1904, Crowley saw Aiwass as his patron angel, but he struggled to fully explain who he was.
Yes. Okay.
So in chapter 1, the goddess Nut calls Crowley her prophet, the beast a name that his mother gave him. The new rule.
That's what I was talking about right there. How now all of a sudden these passages that date 2,500, I'm sorry, almost 4,000 years ago, that were written in that time, written to those people, those pharaohs, was then taken and applied to Mr. Alex Crowley himself.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden, the Egyptian deity is now blessing him with some type of blessing. However, he's been how can I say, he's been guided by a familiar spirit, Aiwass, that looks oddly strange to me. That might turn into another discussion.
That's a whole nother topic because it looked like a grayling alien, that big head, like all of it. That's why I mentioned Jack Parsons, because it's like when you start getting into one thing, now you got the same guy, they pushing all these agendas all out at one time. You got them attacking religion, attacking the way they see people as less than human. You got them touching kids. You got them doing rituals. Now you got them going into Egypt and summoning stuff. Yeah. And it's crazy because now after that, now we're getting into the fact that he allegedly summoned something and is communicating with him, right?
Yeah.
David, can you talk about Jack Parsons real quick just to tie that into what's going on?
And after you do that, David, I'm a comment on my brother Jerome's statement where he says humans are still trying to achieve Godhood,
for sure.
Yeah, because that for some reason that runs right into the outline. Go ahead, David.
Okay, just trying to find. Oh, okay, here we go. Jack Parsons, 1914 to 1952. His contributions was the co-founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, significant figure in the early rocket propulsion research. And of course, his discipline was rocketry, aerospace, and engineering. Now, his ideology was he was a member of the Ordo Templii Orientis, which is the same group Crowley was a part of. And his interest in the occult practices reflected a belief in personal liberation and the pursuit of esoteric knowledge. Now, I'm going to stop right there because this is pretty interesting. The personal liberation do what thou wilt. Crowley made this very, very popular during the 60s. And
I seen Jay-Z wear a shirt with that on it.
Yeah, and that's pretty much popular in our community now. But personal liberation in the pursuit of esoteric knowledge. Now, of course, in pro-Black communities, this is called wokeness or consciousness. We are awakened or woke by the pineal gland, which is centered in the middle of our brains, called the pituitary gland. But it says, while he did not explicitly promote eugenics or racial ideologies in his scientific work, his occult beliefs may have influenced his worldview. So obviously, he had a different agenda, just like all of the rest that we quoted on this live. Parsons was and of course, Parsons and Crowley were friends because they were a part of the same secret society. Just like Samuel Untermeyer and Crowley, they were friends because Samuel Untermeyer was a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The negative influences: Parsons' association with occultism and unconventional lifestyles choices led to professional and personal difficulties. His involvement in occult rituals and practices strained his relationship with his colleagues and raised questions about his judgment and credibility as a scientist. Ideally, scientists who are in the occult will try to amalgamate the two. They'll try to amalgamate, like alchemy and medicine.
So they would try to do the same thing that these people are claiming that we're trying to do: mix religion and science together.
Well, yeah, Satanism and science, or magic and science, usually goes together. I was watching, of course, Masters of the Universe, and what they do is they put together science and sorcery, and they call that sorcery. They call that in Galatians chapter 5, that's drugs,
Pharmakeia. Yeah.
So that's
where we get the word pharmacy from.
Right. So that's the amalgamation of alchemy and science. That's where we get drugs from.
All right. So I already know about this time I gotta go get the kids, but I wanted to touch my brother's statement up here, where he stated humans still trying to achieve Godhead. And from what we've been talking about, and the whole premise of evolution being that one evolves from something simple to something complex, has been also attached and welcomed by Freemasonry because of their ideology about, going from something base and simple to something complex. Or like, what's his name? William L. Wilsberg said, Superman, pretty much. This idea, however, is not old. And it's funny because the first one I wanted to point at was my brother Jacobus, where he says here, I'm gonna show it to you, where he says here, you see it down there, he says, yeah, teach these people where the beliefs actually come from. It's demonic. The Bible tells us that there are doctrines of Satan, doctrines of devils, and this sounds like one of them. And the idea of man going from man to a God is not lost on us, because we know where this idea first came from. And I'm going to read it here in Genesis 3. Bear with me. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, yea, has God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, unless you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, here it is, y'all, you shall not surely die. For God knows that in the day that you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So this idea is not lost to us as Christians because we know where that first idea came from, and Satan is considered a dragon, as Revelation 12 identifies him as the dragon, that old serpent, the devil. And if he was the one who introduced this to mankind in the garden, well, this is his doctrine. He's a devil. This is his doctrine, and it's the doctrine of the devil. And I'm gonna leave it at that for y'all. If y'all have anything else y'all want to touch on some more, I got notes for days, but
yeah, trust me, we got to do a transition from this series into some other things, because I wanted to point out that I know that in Washington D.C. and the Capitol Rotunda there is this painting, right? It's like I think they call it like a fresco painting by Constantino Brumidi. It's called the Apotheosis of Washington.
Oh yeah.
I think I've been there.
Yeah, so I want to give you a definition for apotheosis real quick. And apotheosis means the highest point in the development of something, culmination or climax. And so apotheosis in the Greek is a Greek term where the elevation to status of a god. So, or to make God or to deify. And so I thought that it was, Julius said that he did a ritual called Babylon working. But I thought that it was interesting to point out that, and that title was crazy, that Babylon working is crazy. But I submit to you that even the earliest presidents and people in upper echelon in the 1800s in Washington, D.C. were hip to what was going on with this level of conspiracy. And what do I mean by that? My initial point was that the teachings of Darwinian thinking and ideology have permeated through all of the systems of government, have permeated through all of the systems of academia, and have permeated through all the systems of media and multimedia, even to this day, which there are offshoots and veins that lead into music and hip hop and pseudo religions back when, what was it? Nation of Islam was developed.
Noble Drew Ali.
Noble Drew Ali.
William Crowdy.
And that's BHI. So even the origins of the Black Hebrew Israelites is an offshoot of that. It's not really Judaism. It's not really true Jewish teaching by way of the scriptures. They superimpose things into the text because they had a person. If you go back through his origin, he didn't start off teaching the same things that they teach now.
Right.
It progressively got worse and degraded. So what I'm saying is we need to do a show on leadership within these Black nationalist cults and these black religions. Was weird because even in certain aspects, there is even the Methodist arena, and you have all of these
African Methodist Episcopal.
Yep, and you have all of these boulets who are part of the same trajectory of Freemasonry. Just they'll never get a black person the same thing that the white person got. They got Prince Hall Masonry.
Well, Richard Allen was a Prince Hall Mason. Richard Allen, who was the founder of the AMEs, I heard that he was a Prince Hall Freemason. But a lot of those AMEs are becoming really liberal. A lot of them don't teach the gospel. Some do, but it's designed
to be that way. My point is all of it full circle from the evolutionary thought to the occult practices and teachings and the leading away from their attempt to kill God, as it was put by a couple of the people that we they all they wanted to do was commandeer the psyche of the people, and then put them in position to be, so that they can do their bidding, and so that they can ascend to godhood. And so that was why I pointed out the apotheosis. Like, this isn't new. It's influenced by pretty much every walk of life, even in the hospitals. You wonder why you go to the hospital and people still dying. You know what I'm saying? They use evolutionary thought processes, and they are not really doing. They're not doing people into where we need to be. And so I just wanted to submit that as my closing statements is evolution is the foundation for occultism and racial ideologies, and it has done many atrocities. And so my second thing is to say that we cannot say that, oh, the church is perfect. However, we need to understand that a lot of these things have been designed to go that way because they are lining us up to lead us astray from God. And so
Amen.
The arguments that they make for that, they don't understand where. I'm sorry, I was thrown off by a call. They don't really understand what they're actually truly saying. So to be a Darwinist or a social Darwinist, you are basically purporting racist ideologies and thought processes. So
like this out of Africa theory. Just because they put blackface on it, oh, now the black people, they just, our black brothers and sisters, they run to evolution. It's like, oh, well, look, now they're saying that everybody's from Africa because of this mitochondrial DNA mama. Scientific Eve is what they call her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying that she was the mother of us all.
Mm-hmm.
But because they put it in Africa, they forget she's a transitional ape woman. There's no physical evidence of this mitochondrial Eve, and they have generated plenty of artwork of how she looks, but in reality,
that's no difference than them painting Jesus white and saying, look at this guy. You know what I'm saying? You have to have faith to believe these things.
Right. You have exactly. David, you got something? The time is kind of running out. What you got?
I wanted to just close out by
bring us home.
The fact that we've already proven to all of you that evolution theory is a myth. And they're not only are they pushing this through the education system, but they're pushing it through entertainment. They're pushing it through television. Planet of the Apes. For one thing, you have monkeys running around taking over a planet, and humans are pretty much set to the side. They're not looked at as humans. They're looked at as something that was trying to being subjugated by apes. And I had to look at that for a second, because I said to myself, wow, the apes are actually being, the apes are subjugating humans? Isn't that what a lot of the aforementioned individuals that we talked about over the course of almost 2 hours, they did the same thing. They tried to claim us being monkeys and we're apes and we evolved from primordial sun. The fact is that if we look at scripture tells us explicitly that we were made in the image of God. We were not made from primordial slime. We've already proven that unicellular organisms cannot give life. They can only, use it as a host. They cannot give life. They cannot evolve from anything to anything. So it is my hope that most of you that were listening to this live got something out of this. And we are dead set at exposing this lie from not only a biblical perspective, but from a scientific perspective, because
and a documentary perspective.
Right.
We'll continue.
But because I'm getting tired of pro-blacks going around saying that the white man was made in a laboratory and black folks are gods and we created them somehow, and so now the black man is God. There ain't, or if Jesus Christ is in existence at all, he's not necessarily God. Or if he is God, then, well, we're not going to call him that. We're going to call him you're God. You're the black God, and you can create your own reality. You can create all of these things. It's a lie. It's a demonic lie. We talked about demonic teachings of doctrines of devils. That's actually what this is, a doctrine of devils.
All right. Well, so I'm just going to end with this. There's clearly a difference between Darwinian evolution and biblical narrative. They are competing ideas out here in the world. But the question I would ask is, which one is better? You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't say here's God right here and prove it. But I do believe that we can look at many things in creation to say, hey, this is evidence of God, versus what the evolutionists can do, because they can't replicate any of the things that they have speculated and teach. With the evolution or Darwinian ideology, there is no purpose. There is no meaning to life. There's none of that. But in emphasizing on the creation and biblical narrative, I'm going to point out one: God created the world in 6 days. God created the world for mankind. God created man in his image. God is love, which therefore means that love requires relationship. And we can argue for a Trinity here, because we can look at it. We can look at it in the sense that the Father is the lover, the Son, or Jesus Christ, is the beloved, and the Holy Spirit is the mutual spirit between them two. But I point that out because when we ask, well, why did God create man? It's almost in the sense that God created man to have a relationship with us. God wanted that relationship with us, and that is seen within his creation, because he created the world for us, like I stated. But because of God's foreknowledge of knowing what was going to happen with Adam and Eve in the garden, he had already had a plan at the ready before he even started creating. And that plan was to send Jesus Christ to redeem mankind back to himself. That's why the biblical narrative is so much more relevant and important, is because we have meaning now. We have meaning, we have reasoning, we have reasons to live, we have motivation to live. We also receive our moral standard from the biblical narrative, from God himself. And so that's why I think this show was really important. And me and my bros, we're going to be hitting on a lot of other things too. You heard the NOIs come up. You heard the Black Hebrew Israelites come up. We definitely going to deal with y'all. So with that being said, just want to say I want to thank my bros for coming on for this hot topic. And we will meet y'all again. Grace and peace.
Peace.
Peace out.